Excited about the win, obviously, much needed. Thought our guys responded really, really well to the early adversity in that game, and again, part of being on the ropes is you don't get off of them with one game, just one win, but to beat a top 25 team the way that we did in terms of holding them to 51 yards rushing, us rushing for 214 yards, and getting the ball back with 6:45 on the clock and ended the game with double zeros and a win. Showed a lot of fortitude by our players. But that being said, we got to move on. We got another road test against a very good, well-coached, experienced Iowa State team that their backs are they probably feel like their backs are against the wall a little bit too. So we're going to have to prepare even better this week than we did last week. Injury updates: Junior Anguilao will be out, MCL, not an ACL, so he'll be week to week. I think best case scenario would be the week after Iowa State, but we'll know a lot more as that progresses. Colin Johnson tweaked his hamstring on the last drive in a different spot, not as bad. So we're going to aggressively treat him right now and see how he feels in the next couple of days. Surprisingly good news. Friday, right before the game, Chris Brown went to see the doctor that did his surgery, and it had healed a lot faster than he had anticipated, and cleared him right there on Friday to play with a cast on. So obviously he hadn't practiced all week, so we dressed him, and if all heck broke loose, we might have jogged him in the game, but to know that we're going to have him here this week is a big boost to our defense and to special teams. Jeffrey McCulloch is progressing better these last couple days than the first few days of the week last week. DeMarvion Overshawn again is cleared, still dealing with some pain issues. So we'll see how that progresses. And then Jordan Whittington as well is cleared. We just got to get him to run through some of the soreness and get him back up to maximum velocity. But so all three of those guys, we expect to play, if they progress. Questions?
Right in the middle.
Tom, in 4 of your 6 conference games this year, you don't have a touchdown in the first quarter. I'm curious if you consider what y'all are doing getting off to a slow start, or if you're good with where you stand, early first halves of most of your conference games.
No, I didn't even realize it. I mean, it's not something we've talked about.
Do you think you're getting off to a slow start offensively, or do you feel pretty confident in the way things are starting early in games?
I hadn't really thought about it. I know, we've won 4 of those conference games, and 2 of them, TCU and Kansas State, probably 2 of, if not the 2 best defenses in our conference. So it's not something we've actively talked about.
Are you right, Dennis?
After the 14-0 deficit, the defense was nails. After watching the film, what jumps off the screen to you of why that happened? And then, with that said, how important is that for that unit to get some confidence as they head onto the road?
It's huge, huge. The confidence aspect of it, certainly, especially considering what Kansas State had been doing to people the last few weeks, and what it looked like they were going to be doing to us. But we settled down. We played much better on first and second down. I thought our D-line played really well in terms of the penetration and push they got, creating much more third and manageable situations for our defense. And You know, we executed. I mean, you don't go in. You go into a game plan and you say, okay, here's the 3 or 4 first and second down calls that we're going to call without a blitz. Here's maybe the 3 blitzes on first and second down. And that's what you practice all week. And it's not like when things are going poorly, you're just going to start drawing stuff in the dirt and calling things that you haven't practiced. And so the calls were all the same. You know, I think our guys settled down, and I think, you know, Malcolm Roaches and Brandon Jones and Joseph Osai, those 3 guys, their leadership was invaluable in that situation when things weren't looking real good. To have those guys be as confident to their teammates as they were was a big part of that. But at the end of the day, we stopped the run. We kept them in, you know, second long, third and long, and we executed.
Okay, Brian?
Especially early, Tom, it was hard not to miss that y'all did have 4 defensive linemen out there on a couple of run play situations. And I just have to ask, is that a political statement to us or the fans about going with 4 down linemen as opposed to 3?
I didn't know there was a statement to be made. So no, we're not into making statements to the press or to the fans in our game plans.
As opposed to using 4 instead of 3 on certain run fits?
No, it was when they go 12 and sometimes 22 personnel, we wanted some beef in there in those heavy sets. We've actually played with 4 D linemen before on the goal line in short yardage. So,
and to follow up on what Dennis was asking, I mean, Todd made a pretty passionate for him defense of the scheme and sticking with it and keep fighting. He talked about that last Wednesday. Has that been your message internally to the guys defensively? Is that, you know, trust in the scheme, trust in what you guys are teaching them, and trust that this is the right thing to do going forward? Yeah,
and there's no other choice, right? Because if you don't, you're doomed to fail. So, you know, you're not going to change anything in the middle of a season from a schematic standpoint, from a philosophical standpoint. This is who we are. This is what we believe in. We're going to try our best within the framework of the system to put you in situations to be successful. And, you know, we got to coach you better, and you guys got to buy in and trust it. And I think, you know, for 3 quarters, you saw the fruits of that.
All right, Joe?
Seems like there were some times when y'all didn't have the tight end on the field and brought in Malcolm Epps as y'all's 4th wide receiver. What went into that addition? What does Malcolm himself bring to that position, and will we see more of that going forward?
I think you'll see more of that going forward with Cade out. You know, obviously Reese graded out as a champion, played really good, but is not quite the guy that Cade is out in space. Not his strength, and so with Cade out, you know, if we wanted to get out in space in some detached formations, then we figured it was best to jog another receiver in, especially on 3rd down. And I thought our guys did well. And Malcolm, you know, it affords us the ability to get Colin in the slot too. You know, technically in that personnel grouping, Colin plays the Y and Malcolm plays the X. So it's again a way for us to get Colin some snaps in the slot and in the pass game, but also have some better athletes out there for the perimeter blocking too on some of the perimeter, you know, the bubble screens, the speed option we ran, stuff like that.
Stay on the right, Cedric.
Yeah, Tom, you spoke of misinformation after the win being printed about your team. What put it on your heart to make that statement, given you've always said outside noise doesn't matter to you guys? No,
I was just trying to educate our fans really as to what to believe and what not to believe. I pay no mind to it. I really don't. And just, again, if you want proof of how this team's doing, watch the game. And you saw a team Saturday afternoon that was completely united, loved each other, played really, really hard for each other. So that was it. That was just hopefully our fans can be cautious with what they choose to believe.
Front, onward.
Hey, Coach. We saw kind of a burst of speed out of Keontae Ingram that we really hadn't seen throughout, the season so far. Was that he had talked before about maybe not being 100% healthy? Do you think we saw that burst because maybe now he is healthy? If not, what would you attribute it to? My second question just would be what you saw from the right side of the line with Okafor and Kerstetter in.
What did I what?
See from that right
Oh.
side of the line with Okafor and Kerstetter.
Yeah, Keontae, that you asked what do I attribute it to? Strength. The dude's, pushing 230 pounds right now. He's squatting more than he ever has in his life and power cleaning more than he ever has in his life. And, when you can do that, you're going to see an added burst. As far as his health, if in week 11 or whatever we're in, if you count training camp, what are we, week 15, week 16, if there's a running back in the country that's healthy, you're going to have to show him to me. I think he has, the nagging part of that knee deal is finally, subsided to the point where he feels pretty fresh. And then the right side of the line was serviceable. Obviously, when you rush for 214 yards against that defense, and you go 22 of 29 in the throw game, you're doing something right. But we only had one O lineman, grade out at championship level in Zach Shackelford. I think it'll be helpful now, especially for Derek, to have a whole week of practice at guard and the communication with Denzel and all those things. So I thought it was, plenty good enough for us to do the things that we wanted to do and did do.
In the middle, Ed.
Coach, another week, another really
We called
good.
a reverse.
Coach, I love the plays. Let me, they always
Hey, and
work.
we faked a punt against TCU too. Is that not fall under your definition of?
I like it more when the offense has
I
aggressive.
got
But it really was good. Really was good and exciting for the fans. It really jacked up the fans when that pass, the touchdowns. Question about Brock Purdy. Another week, another great quarterback. What do you see in him? And you spent time at Iowa State as an assistant coach. What is the distaste for Texas? Is this a huge game to the Iowa State fans?
Well, the first part of your question, Brock Purdy, yeah, I mean, this is like, life in the Big 12, right? I mean, you go from great quarterback to great quarterback. And I think, last year when he kind of burst on the scene, I think it was last year was his freshman year, right? You could tell he had a lot of moxie. You could tell he could run around and make plays. I think what he's doing right now, he's the sixth leading passer in the country right now in terms of yards per game. So you can tell there's a lot of comfort in the offense, and he's standing back there and throwing the ball really, really well. And then I don't know what their attitudes in Ames are towards Texas. I'm worried about Texas, to be honest with you. But when I was there, every game was big.
On your left, Kalen.
You're in your third year now at UT, and after last game, you mentioned that you and your staff know what you signed up for, joining UT. I wanted to get your opinion on what it's kind of like, being in the third year at this program as a head coach, and I guess what is different about it in comparison to your previous experience at Houston, where you were 2 years there, and now you're third year.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, again, the expectations from our fans, from the media, any of that. They're never going to be as high as what's inside of our building. And, you know, we have tremendously high expectations for what we deem successful in terms of our level of play, our level of recruiting, our level of representing this university. So I don't think it's any different, to be honest with you. I think it could be if you let, as Cedric mentioned, if you let the outside noise affect you, both when it's really, really good and really bad, because it can be a bit louder here, the outside noise, than a lot of places. But I think we have done a really good job as a program of tuning that out and turning up the volume of the messages that are being conveyed within our program.
Stay on the what, Danny?
Excuse me, Tom. Will you guys be? I know you mentioned a little bit on your conference call, but will you guys be doing anything different, practice-wise, to kind of adjust to lower temperatures in Ames this week?
No, I don't know what you do. You know, thankfully it's going to be pretty chilly tomorrow for practice, so our guys will practice outside. But again, the temperature is way down the list in terms of things that weather phenomenon that you got to deal with when it comes to football. I mean, we got sweats and tights and gloves. I mean, they'll be fine. They'll be running around. I'm sure we'll have heaters on the sideline. So you don't ever alter or think of the impact of temperature. Alter your game plan or think of the impact of temperature. Wind, 20-mile-an-hour wind, that'll affect some of what you do. Sideways rain, that'll affect, what you do. But cold is, it doesn't really affect your game plan whatsoever.
It's 19 right now in Ames.
I've been there when it was colder.
Tom, a couple of questions about your special teams. One, I guess you finally got the big punt return. That proved pivotal for you the other day.
Yeah. 2 plays later, scored a touchdown. Yeah.
So, and the other thing, if you can speak to both that and the confidence you have in the field goal team from Dicker to really you had a backup holder for that play. I mean, there's a lot that could have gone wrong.
Well, he's the starter now.
Well, he's the starter now, but he wasn't. And
Right.
even Dicker talked to kind of the work he had to do this week. Were you calculating that through that whole, late game scenario?
No, we've got a ton of confidence in those guys. They've obviously the holder hadn't done it very much in live situations, but to those guys, especially where we were on the field, that's a little bit farther than an extra point, and so. You do, when you have a kicker and a battery, if you will, that's been as good as they have, it is a luxury. It's like, when we had the punter a couple years ago that won the Gray Guy Award. That is a weapon, and the same thing we jogged him out there to try a 55-yard field goal, with a slight breeze in his face because we thought he could make it. And so very confident in those guys. And then obviously the punt return, really good individual effort by Brandon, certainly. But if you want to see a guy embody the level of effort and tenacity that we want all of our players to play with, go watch Roschon Johnson on that play. It's impressive. And I say that because obviously it took a lot of other guys to make that play happen, not just Brandon, but he certainly did his part.
Real quick, on the kickoff return, if you identified what happened there, and I'm wondering since the change of the rule for the fair catches, if that creates a scenario where you have to guard against an expectation that teams are going to do that there might be a natural for a kickoff team to maybe expect a fair catch and not
There is,
be ready
and
for
when
the
your
return.
when your kicker has been kicking touchbacks all night long too. So there is the human element certainly, and we have to really fight it. Because a lot of those guys that are playing on that coverage team are young and inexperienced, and so we had one big missed assignment on it, and then we had a couple guys not compressing the ball the way they needed to, and got exposed. And lesson learned for some of those young guys in terms of the level of effort and physicality that's necessary, rep after rep after rep on that unit.
Tom, Keandre Coburn said that the defense settling in was the result of Stearns and Foster being back. What does Chris Brown bring? Because arguably he was one of your best defensive players in the first 4 games of the year.
Well, I just the guy flies around. He's physical as all get out. We'll see with a giant cast on your hand, how if he can pick off any passes, or hopefully he can find a way to wrap guys up, tackling them. But I think just his energy is contagious when he's out there. So I know he was, before he got injured. We don't have captains of special teams. We call him a field general, and he was the leader of the special forces unit, and then obviously had worked himself into being a starter on defense, really because of the value, early in our tenure here that he provided on special teams. And it's like, we're going to have a hard time keeping this guy off the field. And but the biggest thing that sticks out to me with Chris is energy and physicality.
Middle, Roger?
Tom, tight end's not always a topic that comes up with the opposition. What kind of matchup issue is Kohler?
Difficult. I've they're just so physical, in the pass game, and even so much so that we didn't have pads on yesterday, and we're sitting there talking to BJ and talking to Caden and talking to Brandon about, these guys are going to, flipper you and shove you and try to body you up. And, we've got to, when we're in position, we've got to stand our ground on some of those option routes and, spot routes, stuff like that. But they do a heck of a job getting them the football too, in terms of the play design, to get them the football. And then, in the run game, it's just as significant.
What time for 2 last ones? Bryant and Kirk?
Last two. Roshan's done well, and everyone's excited to see Jordan Whittington come back. But Saturday, do you think Keontae was trying to prove, hey, I'm still here, and I want to still be the guy?
No. Keontae is the ultimate team player. He played really well. I think he's really getting comfortable back there, but he's got nothing to prove to anybody.
With the balanced offense that you showed Saturday and the defensive improvement, is that the team that you envisioned kind of all year? And how do you think you'll do on the road where you've kind of mixed results this year?
I think so. I think playing complementary football the way that we did, to be able to beat Kansas State the way that we did in terms of time of possession and running the football and stopping the run, I think is exciting. Obviously, we've got to replicate that throughout these coming weeks. But it's harder to win on the road. I mean, that's why they call it a home field advantage, especially in if you allow the climate to be a distraction. That can be a hindrance as well. And just knowing from my time there that fan support is pretty phenomenal, that they get there and they'll be packed in there. It'll be loud. But we have proven, that we feel like West Virginia's atmosphere is really dang good too, and we played well there. And you know, we didn't play real good in Fort Worth, but you know, I think our guys. I mean, it's harder to win on the road. There's no doubt, but it's not something we lower our expectations because of.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.